And they wondered if a black talk radio station would work in Southern California.
Y'all did it!
Well, KBLA Talk 1580 toasts its 3rd anniversary on Juneteenth, and you're invited to celebrate with us.
Hey, Travis Smiley, talk about.
All you have to do is go to KBLA1580.com right now and sign up. Admission is free, but mandatory, and space is limited. Once we reach capacity, we'll have to cut off the online registration, but it's open right now.
Oh my God!
So don't delay.
Thank you guys for doing the best at what you do.
Log on to KBLATalk1580.com right now and register to join us for an afternoon of good music, good people, and good vibes.
Happy anniversary.
Wednesday, June 19th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. We will provide the food and drink, but be sure to bring your low-back chairs, blankets, and your personal picnic baskets.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Let's celebrate 3 years of being the most trusted, credible, and reliable source of news and information.
We love you, KBLA.
We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're black and stride again.
Black and stride again.
Happy anniversary.
KBLA Talk 1580. Hey, he picked it. He is one of our top scholars. He is an author, prolific author of, gosh, I don't even know how many books. I feel like it just hit me that if I were to do nothing but read Dr. Gerald Horne's books, I would probably have enough reading to keep me busy for the foreseeable future. He is a professor of history at University of Houston and a YouTube star. Also an official KBLA contributor, Dr. Gerald Horne. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, man. Thank you for coming through. You have a new book, Armed Struggle, Panthers and Communists, Black Nationalists and Liberals in Southern California through the 60s and 70s. Let's start there.
Well, it's not only about armed struggle, which you saw in August 1970 when Jonathan Jackson of Pasadena sought to engage in armed action at a courthouse in Marin County due north in relationship to his brother, George Jackson. But you also have to distinguish armed propaganda. That's when the Panthers in May 1967 entered the state capitol in Sacramento armed. And of course, they were objecting to new legislation. By the way, then Governor Ronald Wilson Reagan was amongst those who backed armed limitations or gun control in light of the Panthers having guns. And then, of course, there's armed self-defense, which comes into play in Los Angeles when the Panthers are attacked at their headquarters in December 1969 and fight the LAPD to a standstill. So that's just one part of this sprawling history that also incorporates the history of the NAACP over the decades. It incorporates the founders of Kwanzaa, which comes out of Southern California, you may recall. It also talks about the Communist Party, which before the crackdown had one of the strongest units, particularly in Hollywood.
Before the crackdown, you're talking about McCarthyism and the rooting out of socialists and communists, whatever, through in the creative community.
Oh, absolutely. You may be familiar with the screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, who was a leading communist and perhaps was the most talented screenwriter of his era. He wound up in jail, for example.
So, I mean, the reason I laughed a little when you said I may recall is because I had an ongoing conversation, I'll say, with my dad about the US organization and the founding of Kwanzaa and what really happened there. I'm pretty sure you know my father, Amir Baraka, wrote about it in his book, and he had strong opinions about it.
Well, as you probably know, your father at one time was close to the founder of Kwanzaa, but then they had a rupture, a break. I dare say that you'll probably find the most complete telling of that story in my book, just like you'll find the most complete telling of the story of what happened in UCLA in January 1969 when 2 Panthers were killed, allegedly at the hands of members of the US organization. And you'll also find the most complete story of what befell the then young professor, Angela Davis, who was a professor at UCLA and was hounded out of that position because of her political affiliations with the Black Panthers and the Communist Party, and then, of course, went on trial for murder, conspiracy, and kidnapping in light of the aforementioned action involving the 17-year-old Jonathan Jackson.
Yeah. Dominique is currently typing in ordering your book right now. Most complete telling of all those things. That's must-read book right now. Sorry, other books. It's going to the top of the pile.
Well, it's a lot of L.A. history, a lot of Pasadena history in this story. Because, as noted, Jonathan Jackson and George Jackson both had roots in Pasadena. Eldridge Cleaver, who in some ways is, I'm afraid to say, the villain of this story, he too had roots in Black Pasadena. And there's a whole story that needs to be told in further detail about the history of Black people in that city due east of Los Angeles.
Wow, I can't wait to read this, Dr. Horne. I think, let me ask you this as a question. Why do you think, if you do, that it's important that this story be talked about right now?
Well, we're about to enter a very dark era with the Republicans pledging to fight fire with fire in light of the conviction of Donald Trump. If they resume power in the White House, particularly in January, you can better believe they'll be indicting folks right and left, including perhaps people like yourself and myself.
Yeah.
And so we need to know how we got to this point. And I think that this book helps us to understand how we reached this point.
Yeah, right now while we're speaking, police are moving in on the campus in Stanford because the young people have occupied the president's office there, protesting in support of the Palestinian people, anti-war protests. And it seems like now these universities are not all of them, but most of them are not even engaging with the students. They're just calling in the law enforcement. And I feel like, this history of the repression of protest and such, that in your book also probably has some lessons for this current moment in that sense as well.
No doubt about it. As a matter of fact, go back to 1967 when Israel attacked Egypt and Jordan and seized the West Bank and Gaza. You had fierce protests by the Black Panther Party, and that was one of the reasons for the crackdown on them in 1967, 1968, and going forward. And likewise, if you look at the website of the New York Times as we speak, you find an intriguing story about how the Israeli authorities, the so-called Ministry of Diaspora Affairs in Israel, sought to influence the positions on Gaza of members of the Congressional Black Caucus, including Senator Warnock of Georgia, Speaker-in-Waiting Hakeem Jeffries of Brooklyn, and a number of others. In other words, they're interfering directly in the internal affairs of the United States of America. with a very peculiar focus on black legislators.
Yeah. When you say peculiar focus, are you drawing a line there, a straight line to the fact that these people know that black Americans overwhelmingly side with the Palestinians in this conflict?
Well, clearly, there is a fear that black Americans who wield a lot of cultural capital in the United States will influence other non-black communities in regard to taking pro-Palestinian positions. Although I must say, in all fairness, that I'm not sure if they had to execute an influence operation against Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of Brooklyn, because he has not exhibited any sympathy towards the Palestinians, but I guess they must know something I don't know.
Yeah, he's been very, very pro-Israel. Some younger folks are, and others, progressives, souring on him because he's taken such a hard line stance, actually. But this story, which I just pulled up, Israel secretly targets U.S. lawmakers with influence campaign on Gaza war, saying they set up fake social media accounts where they tried to urge, where they actually lobbied lawmakers to continue to support Israel financially in their military campaign, et cetera, et cetera. That in tandem with the story earlier this week about how members of the International Criminal Court were threatened and targeted by Israeli operatives. It really is painting a scary picture. Not just, we always talk about the influence of AIPAC, the influence of just the historical alliance between Israel and the United States, and people like Biden who have been, such staunch allies of Israel, to the point where they're not even looking at, a more modern analysis of what's going on. When you add that to the covert campaign, it seems very menacing.
Very menacing indeed. And you may be familiar with the fact that just this week, the House passed by an overwhelming margin legislation that would sanction members of the International Criminal Court after they applied for a warrant for the arrest of Prime Minister Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, his major military advisor. Now, to be fair, that measure will probably die in the Senate, but it's an emblem of the kind of hysteria that's gripped Washington and that's further isolating the United States, particularly from its European allies. You know that Spain, Ireland, and Norway have upgraded the diplomatic status of the Palestinians at the recent vote in the United Nations General Assembly, upgrading the diplomatic status of the Palestinians there. You had U.S. allies like Ukraine and the U.K., Great Britain, abstain rather than vote along with the United States to veto that particular measure. Of course, it was not vetoed since it was the General Assembly, not the Security Council. So the United States is out of step, which Mr. Biden will discover as he lands in France for the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion of Normandy, the Normandy beaches, by the Allies to thwart Nazi Germany.
So you're thinking he's going to feel the chill when he lands in France?
Oh, I think so, because I think that the entire North Atlantic Alliance is suffering reputational damage because of its full-throated support for Israeli war crimes. That is to say, how can you credibly claim that you're in favor of a so-called rules-based international order when obviously the rules do not apply to Israel? This is a double standard. It's hypocrisy, and the United States is the major force pushing it.
Yeah, we're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. We do have a lot to talk about, and we will welcome your phone calls, your input in the conversation at 800-920-1580 or on YouTube at KBLA 1580. We are unapologetically outspoken, unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Hi, Tavish Smiley here.
We're getting closer to June 18th, and time is running out for you to register to join us for our historic symposium live on C-SPAN, Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com right now if you want to be in the audience when the nation will see for the first time ever a stage full of brilliant black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's all going down. Well, it's actually all going up. Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. live from the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Again, admission is free, but we're filling up fast. So if I were you, I would log on right now to KBLA1580.com to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. We're KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Diego.
Hi, Diego. It's Jennifer Coolidge. You know, I just want to say your cashback match makes me feel so special. It really inspired me.
That's great. Doubling the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year is what we do.
Well, I'm doubling everything now. Double dating, double dipping, double feature, double header, double whammy. You know, basically double or nothing.
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
And thank you for waking up with Dr. Gerald Horne, whose latest book I am ordering as we speak, Armed Struggle, Panthers, Communists, Black Nationalists, and Liberals in Southern California through the 60s and 70s. And I bet he's probably already working on the sequel through the 80s and 90s. Dr. Gerald Horne, certainly, not at the level of what happened foundationally in that era. And it's funny because when I moved here to Southern California, I had the prejudiced Northern California attitude that people in Southern California are not politically active. Why did I think that? I don't know. I knew about the Black Panthers. I think it's the stereotypes, the images on TV of Baywatch and stuff. That's what I thought Southern California was. But there's actually quite a tradition of struggle, innovation, and Black scholarly work here.
Well, indeed. I've dealt with that same issue. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. And when I was telling people in my hometown that I was working on Southern California and its radical tradition, they couldn't believe it. They have this image of Southern California being the land of empty heads and plastic surgery and frivolity, etc. Now, how that image arrived, I'm not really sure. I think it has to do with the presence of Hollywood and the film industry. And people associate Southern California with that one industry and don't look at the complexities and the differences that otherwise obtain.
Yeah, but also, as you pointed out earlier, the McCarthyism that rooted out a lot of the conscious writers and stuff from Hollywood is part of that. And I had that impression too. I'm glad I wasn't alone. I sure learned differently, from the good life to, from the, the health and wellness movement to the Black Panther Party and, others, all the way to this day. Black Lives Matter, for that matter. The tradition is alive and well.
Well, clearly so. I mean, it's no accident that the vice presidential running mate of Dr. Cornel West comes from the Southland, speaking of Melina Abdullah, one of the premier stellar activists in the anti-police terror movement. And there's a long tradition of that in Southern California. Now, of course, there are ups and downs because there's repression.
Right.
And repression leads to valleys, but inevitably they're followed by peaks.
Are you, Are you supporting the West Abdullah ticket, Dr. Horne?
Well, I am on record as endorsing the West Abdullah ticket. But, of course, I should say that I vote in the state of Texas.
Right.
There is little doubt that the Republicans will win the state of Texas. In fact, what your audience should know is that the Republicans in Texas are moving to erode majority rule. That is to say that in order to win statewide office, if they have their way, it's not enough to get 50 plus 1% of the vote. You have to win 50 plus 1 counties. And some of the counties have a few hundred citizens, a few hundred residents. And this is a way to blunt the Latino ascendancy accompanied by the black progressivism. And so I think that it's time for something new, because if we keep doing what we have been doing, it's no telling where we'll end up.
Wow, they got so many tricky ways to keep the majority rule from ruling.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they say, too, that it's just a replica of the Electoral College, because, as you know, to win the U.S. presidency, you don't have to win the majority of the vote, as Hillary Rodham Clinton, for example, as Al Gore, for example. And so if it's good enough for the United States of America, they say it's good enough for Texas. So,
but really it should be the other way around, eliminating the Electoral College, not implementing on a statewide level, right? Well, we were talking about Israel and Palestine and you know, these stories which are getting buried in the Hunter Biden Trump conviction cacophony of Israel actually having operatives who threatened members of the International Criminal Court, and apparently campaigns to covertly pressure politicians, mostly targeting black politicians here, to continue to support that funding for Israel. And you mentioned all the nations that are now recognizing Palestine in different ways. It doesn't have a legal impact, right? It's more symbolic. Is that the case? I mean, if I'm recognizing your government, but I don't have authority.
It's a steady drip, drip, drip. What I mean by that is, take the impending warrant for arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu. This is going to handicap his ability to travel, because if Spain, for example, has a judge that the Palestinian mission in their country should be upgraded, they may feel obligated to detain Netanyahu if somehow he lands in Spain. Of course, I'm sure his travel agents will have him not landing in Spain.
Darn it! Couldn't we do it at his speech at Congress? That would be some stuff right there. Can we do a citizen's arrest? What the heck?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm sure that the folks in Washington are aware of the fact that there could be a citizen's arrest. Now, those doing the arresting might wind up in jail themselves.
Or dead, yeah.
Or dead, minimally. But still, it's a legal possibility.
Mm. And speaking of that speech, Dr. Gerald Horne, it's giving me a little bit of Netanyahu speaking when Obama was president. It seems to me incredibly disrespectful and also inappropriate in this time, this particular moment in history, for Republicans to be inviting this dude to address Congress and going around the president and doing so.
Well, it's no secret that right now there's bad blood between the White House and Mr. Netanyahu. In the Time magazine interview, Mr. Biden suggests that Mr. Netanyahu does not want to agree with a truce in terms of the conflict with Hamas in Gaza, because he wants to extend his prime minister's tenure. That is to say that if there is a truce, then there will be investigations of the shambolic process that led to Hamas on October 7th being able to capture hundreds of Israeli hostages. And then, of course, Mr. Netanyahu is facing all manner of criminal charges that could land him in jail. You know that a previous prime minister landed in jail as a result of various crimes. I'm speaking of Mr. Olmert, for example. So the president is there. And, of course, if he does land in jail, perhaps he will have a kind of a writing partner with Mr. Trump. He might wind up in jail himself.
They can be jail pen pals. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Oh my. Okay, so we had a conversation on this show a couple days ago, I think, where our Gen Z staff member here says, well, if Biden is now advocating for a ceasefire, we shouldn't give him credit for that because he's not doing it because he cares. He's doing it under pressure. My thought is that most politicians do most everything under pressure. What's your take on that?
Well, sure. I mean, I think there's merit to both positions, quite frankly. I mean, obviously, he's under tremendous pressure. I mean, look at the speculation about the Democratic Convention in Chicago in August.
Yeah.
There might be a replay of what happened in Chicago in 1968 when police were cracking down and cracking heads, protesters in the streets. But at the same time, we have to give him credit for recognizing what time it is. And because it's not preordained that a politician will recognize that the time has come to adopt a new posture towards these war criminals in Israel.
Mm. Okay, we've got a minute here before news, traffic, and sports. But Mexico also recognized Palestine, right? And they've also elected a woman as their president.
Yeah, Claudia Sheinbaum, who is of Jewish heritage. And I think that needs to be pointed out, too, because before the 20th century, Mexico had a deep and profound history of anti-Jewish fervor. And so it's no small thing that a Jewish woman has been elected president. Not to mention, it's no small thing that a woman who has been a pioneer in climate research, a pioneer in terms of energy engineering, for example, a woman who comes from the left, and it's fair to continue the progressive tradition of the outgoing president, AMLO, Lopez Obrador. So we should ask ourselves in the United States, how was it that Mexico was able to elect a woman president before the United States has been able to do so?
Mm. And also interesting that, they have taken that position around Palestine at the same time as electing a Jewish president. Figure that one out. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne and you on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Thanks for sharing a part of your Wednesday with us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to approve a $17 billion investment deal with Disney World. The New York Sun says the deal will be announced today that could include new additions to the theme park, as well as commitments from Disney to help develop housing for its employees, with Florida promising to maintain the necessary infrastructure for the park. We're now learning that Sean Diddy Combs is selling his stake in his media company, Revolt. Facing multiple lawsuits accusing the African-American rapper of sexual assault, Sean Combs agreed to separate from the company he founded. Revolt began more than a decade ago, meant to be a music industry-focused cable channel promoting black representation. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
As humans, we like having options. One option you might like is speaking with a real person when you call about your credit card. With 24/7 live U.S.-based customer service from Discover, everyone can talk to a real person anytime, day or night. Limitations apply. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congrats to the Angels and manager Ron Washington. The Angels' second straight victory over San Diego Tuesday night gives the Angels their first series win at home this season. The Angels have been struggling at home with a 9-21 record, the worst in the major leagues. The Dodgers were shut out for the fourth time this season. Pittsburgh needed only one run to get the win. The Dodgers were 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position. More drama for WNBA rookie Angel Reese. The Chicago Sky forward suffered her first ejection of the season in last night's game against the New York Liberty. Reese was hit with 2 technicals for protesting a call. Part 1 of Clipped, the mini-series about former Clippers owner Donald Sterling, made its debut last night on Hulu. Lawrence Fishburne plays the part of former Clippers coach Doc Rivers in the 6-episode series. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Not feeling like yourself lately? Has your weight loss plateaued? If so, it's time to embrace the D-Herbs Full Body Cleanse, a cleansing regimen that can help you lose 10 to 30 pounds. The D-Herbs Cleanse also helps to boost the immune system, improve mental clarity, clear up your skin, and improves your digestion. This cleanse is like a factory reset for your health. The Full Body Cleanse is a great way to propel you into a healthier lifestyle. With summer just around the corner, there's never been a better time to initiate that weight loss and reboot your system. Go to dherbs.com and order your full body cleanse today or call 866-434-3727. Enter KBLA 1580 at checkout for a discount. D-Herbs. Experience healing.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390 and start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
I feel occasional burning and stabbing in my hands as I age.
I sometimes feel numbness and tingling in my feet as I get older.
It's starting to get in the way of doing what I love.
At Nervive, we hear you, and we can help. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use.
Now that I know, I'm taking control.
Try Nervive Nerve Relief and say yes to healthy nerves. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
And thanks to everyone who checked in and checks in on socials. We're at KBLA 1580 on all platforms, and I'm at DiPrima Radio. And Dr. Gerald Horne is my guest right now. I know we can Google you, we can YouTube, we can search you on YouTube, and there's a bunch of lectures, including a couple of these shows. We can buy your books, including your latest. But are you active on socials?
Not really. I have people who are active on my behalf, which I support, but not me personally.
And is it? I know I follow you on X, Gerald Horne.
Yeah, I think that's it. I have to contact.
He's too busy writing books to be messing around on social media, but at least you have someone doing it for you. I'm looking it up as we speak. But okay, so some folks want to talk to you on the phone, and let's do that before we get into some of my other questions here. Let's go to Morris from Inglewood. You're on with Dr. Gerald Horne on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, good morning to everyone. I'd like to continue this conversation regarding the rule of law. Dr. Horne, do you believe that D.A. Bragg will ask for the maximum sentence of Donald Trump after being convicted of 34 felonies, being defiant, non-remorseful? I believe it would be a miscarriage of justice if Donald Trump is not imprisoned in Judge Juan Merchan's court. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you believe he will be incarcerated? And secondly, is there another country other than the United States that supports what the Israelis are doing in Gaza? And thank you very much. Good morning, Dominique.
Good morning.
Well, with regard to the first point, I'm sympathetic to what Morris from Inglewood is saying. I would like to see Mr. Trump in an orange jumpsuit. However, given the fact that he's a supposed first criminal offender, and given the fact that he's 77 years old, and given the fact that he is perhaps en route to being president of the United States, it would not surprise me at all if he received a lesser sentence, for example, house confinement, home confinement, for example, or perhaps a lengthy probation, for example. Now, I'm sure that if he receives the former, home confinement, Melania Trump will object strenuously. But that's another story for another
Did you
day.
see that meme, Dr. Horne, where she's saying, just confirming that conjugal visits are not mandatory? But well, I mean, it does seem. I mean, I'm asking you to put on your lawyer hat. You did go to law school. It does seem like anyone else talking smack about the judge is going to get some time. I mean, first offender, old guy, rich guy. Still he's out. He's in contempt of court like nearly constantly.
Constantly, indeed. But I think that this miasma of violence that's hanging over this country, with Mr. Trump virtually promising violence if he's imprisoned. We all know what happened on January 6th. We need to wake up to the reality that we have this mass right-wing movement that's armed to the teeth, and the judge might shrink in the face of that spectacle.
Yeah, well, he has been threatened and such. Let's go to Tony calling us from Santa Clarita. Tony, you are on with Dr. Gerald Horne.
Hey, good morning, Dominique and Mr. Horne. This week, the re-inauguration of the president of El Salvador, and Donald Trump Jr. and Tucker Carlson and some bunch of Republican senators and people were there. Do you think this guy is a CIA agent, that he was put in there while in the Trump administration to help Trump with the deportation and the border control and all this stuff?
Well, I would have to speculate. And although it's no secret that Donald Trump Jr. and Tucker Carlson went to his inauguration, it's also very curious that Mr. Bukele, the re-elected president, has locked up a significant percentage of the young male population. He says that this is because during the wars of the 1980s and 1990s, that El Salvadorians formed gangs in Southern California and then brought back those gangs of paramilitary forces to El Salvador, forcing his hand. It's also something worth investigating. That is to say that Mr. Bukele has been a big fan of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
In fact, you have ATMs in El Salvador that dispense cryptocurrency. He's trying to make it a crypto economy. And I have to say, with all due respect to enthusiasts for crypto, that oftentimes there are organized crime elements involved in that particular enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting how they're embracing this guy, but it's not surprising considering Trump's love of dictators. But this guy, Nayib Bukele, has kind of become somewhat of a darling because he's a young guy. Supposedly he's pro-business, not just to the far-right MAGA. Like, there's other people that, and because of the crypto thing, that point him out as if he was some kind of a democratic or some kind of sign of hope for El Salvador. Hopefully, having Matt Gaetz and Kimberly Guilfoyle fangirling for him, hopefully that's a wake-up call for some folks.
Well, he calls himself the world's coolest dictator, which I think says it all. But more seriously, what concerns me is that El Salvador's influence seems to be spreading in the region. For example, during the recent elections in Panama, there was a lot of talk about how Panama needs a Bukele-type leader. And I think that that's the last thing that Panama needs.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a scary thing. And I think you couple that with the fascist leadership that we see emerging in Europe and what's happening here in this country. I sound like you right now, Dr. Horne.
Well, there are worse things that you could sound like.
True that. But I mean, I guess the real question is something you've been talking about for a long time, which is, the spread of fascism, not, in a pocket here, a pocket there, as we've seen over the years, but in a much more global way right now.
Well, clearly, I mean, look at what's happening in France with the far right slated to do quite well in European parliamentary elections. The Alternative for Germany, which is an admitted neo-fascist party, is slated to do quite well in upcoming European parliamentary elections. And so, but on the other hand, let's be fair. I mean, look at the victory of Sheinbaum in Mexico.
Yeah,
that is highly significant, and also countervails the popularity of Bukele in El Salvador.
Yeah, and just you can call it speculation. My personal experience: I've been to El Salvador. I know lots of Salvadorians from the Bay, and there's definitely they already have an issue with anti-Blackness there. So you couple that on top of fascism, and when I'm talking about anti-Blackness, I'm talking about not just us, the Black people that live there or travel through there. You couple that with the MAGA seal of approval, it just it doesn't bode well.
Well, speaking of anti-Blackness, you can't talk about that in this hemisphere without talking about the Dominican Republic, which, believe it or not, might be the headquarters of anti-Blackness in the Caribbean, insofar as its independence was pivoted around breaking away from Haiti in the 1840s. And it's one of the few nations that says that its independence was based upon breaking away from a Black nation, for example. And as a result, you see in the Dominican Republic the building of a wall to keep Haitians out of their country. You see some of the most potent anti-Blackness outside of the United States of America.
No, it's a really good point, and it's where people. This is where the thing about being Afro-Latino gets confusing, right? Because you look at. It seems like a dumb example, but Cardi B being Dominican and then downing Black women, and some people say, but she is Black. But even if she is, how do you process that if she doesn't recognize herself as such, being Dominican and identifying as not Haitian, which is actually code for not Black?
Well, oftentimes point people to websites where they can see the before and after pictures of baseball star Sammy Sosa,
oh, gosh,
who, of course, has roots in the Dominican Republic. That is to say, before, he is as brown or Black as a person like myself, but after, he's drained off the melanin from his
right,
skin.
before he looks handsome and after he looks like a bottle of Pepto-Bismol.
Oh, I see. Well, I don't think I can top that one.
I mean, but you're using that as an example of the colorism there. And so as we, especially when you're looking at, I don't want to go too far into a sidetrack here, but when we look at definitions of Blackness and, the Friedman or ADOS movement and the whole struggle right now for people to understand and at least acknowledge the uniqueness and specificity of African Americans in our struggles, or Black Americans, Friedman in our struggles, these kinds of dialogues have to be done in a nuanced and broad way, right?
Well, clearly so. I mean, I think that there is a certain kind of uniqueness to the Black American condition, experience, and struggle in North America. Just like, for example, I'll be in London next month doing research. And whenever I go to London, I'm struck by the fact of how I'm treated there as opposed to how Black Britishers are treated, how Jamaicans are treated, how Nigerians are treated, for example. That is to say that it would be naive to to think that we, who have been battling these settlers in North America for the last few hundred years, that those who have not been involved, and particularly in that particular battle, would be treated the same way we were. Just like I'm not necessarily treated the same way Black Britishers are, who have been battling these Englishmen for centuries.
Yeah, that's a great point. Talking with Dr. Gerald Horne, we do have a lot to cover. We're going to get to as much of it as we can. We'll continue the conversation when we come forward, and you're invited in. Definitely don't want to miss at least getting your take on the elections in South Africa and the implications of those results when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had Leaf Filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Get ready to play. Join the LA84 Foundation Saturday, June 29th for a free Playday block party at 2141 West Adams Boulevard with sports, games, and fun for all ages. With live music, amazing local food, and the spirit of LA's 1984 Summer Olympics celebrating 40 years of impact of the LA84 Foundation. June 29th at LA84's campus in West Adams from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Register at la84.org. See you at Playday.
Medicare Fraud Prevention Week focuses on the actions everyone can take to prevent Medicare fraud, errors, and abuse. Learn how to protect yourself and your loved ones by joining the Senior Medicare Patrol, or SMP, for Medicare Fraud Prevention Week, June 3rd through the 9th. Learn more at snpresource.org or by calling 1-877-808-2468.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Febreze. So my home is also my office, and before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up, then spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day. Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
You do belong here, and I'm glad you are here, and so does Dr. Gerald Horne, and we're always happy to have him. We are all going out, especially those of us in Southern California who need to know our own history, and buying Dr. Horne's new book that is called Armed Struggle, Panthers, Communists, Black Nationalists, and Liberals in Southern California through the 60s and 70s. One thing about Dr. Horne's books, you're going to know what it's about from the title. Dr. Horne, we were talking about a lot of different things, but I had hoped that you would touch on the recent elections in South Africa and the implications for the continent and the globe as well as the country itself.
Well, it was a setback for the ruling African National Congress, the party of Nelson Mandela. In previous national elections, they got 57%. This time they got about 40%. It was due in part to the defection from their ranks of the former president, Jacob Zuma, who ran on a separate ticket and got about 14 to 15% of the vote. It's no secret that the external environment, insofar as the United States is concerned, is quite negative towards South Africa. The United States is concerned about South Africa's relationship with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and the BRICS, so-called. They're concerned about South Africa bringing this case before the International Court of Justice with regard to a plausible case of genocide against Israel. And, of course, the United States would be viewed as aiders and abettors in that regard. However, on the other side, what I think is happening is that because of this hostility to South Africa, the United States is trying to gain leverage by warming up relations with Angola, for example, where you see the United States is made that country in Southwest Africa one of its major recipients of foreign aid on the African continent. You see that with regard to the neighbor to the north, speaking of Zimbabwe, the United States, although it tightens sanctions against the leaders, it lessens sanctions against the nation as a whole. This may be due to the fact that Zimbabwe is a repository of lithium, important to the green economy. Elon Musk has said that having lithium is a license to print money. So there are some complexities involved with regard to the South African election and the reaction to same.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Dr. Horne, being on the ground there in Johannesburg last year, you could hear the dissatisfaction with the ANC from just regular young people who are impatient with the pace of change and the way that, just the way that we were treated and what we observed as black people. Apartheid is still, in the mindset of white South Africans.
Not only that, but apartheid helps to account in part for the corruption, because you've had generations of black families systematically deprived and driven into poverty. And so therefore, when they get into government, they develop a case of sticky fingers. But what's also ironic about these South African elections is that the decline of the ANC can be marked from the ascension of President Jacob Zuma circa 2008 to circa 2018. And yet, he was a major beneficiary of the punishing of the ANC at the polls during this recent election.
Wow, that's an interesting point. He's resilient. Let me put it that way. And talk a little bit about, put that in the context with having the state visit for the Kenyan president and the relations there. As I head out to Kenya in a couple of weeks, Dr. Horne.
Oh, good for you. And if I may, you may want to pack my book on Kenya, which came out a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But in any case, President Ruto, this was a major visit, a state visit, very unusual for a visiting African head of state. But this connects to the fact that President Ruto of Kenya is pledging to send hundreds, if not a few thousand, Kenyan police to Haiti to combat the so-called gangs or paramilitary forces and to try to restore some sort of order in their Caribbean nation. Of course, that move has not been greeted with unanimity in Nairobi, in his homeland. But in any case, there is an upgrading of relations between Kenya and the United States of America, although Mr. Ruto is being pressured simultaneously to disrupt relations with China, even though China has been a major source of capital and investment for Kenya, including building an important railway from Mombasa on the Indian Ocean coast to the capital of the interior, speaking of Nairobi, and presumably a pledge to extend that railway into neighboring Uganda. So Mr. Ruto, in many ways, is in the hot seat.
Got a minute here, Dr. Horne. What do you want to leave us with this morning?
Well, as I said, I have to return to this Southern Africa situation and how, because of U.S. disgruntlement with South Africa, they're trying to improve relations with Angola. And Angola, like Kenya, is also getting bags of goodies from China at the same time. So you have a number of African nations, such as Angola and Kenya, that are poised to benefit from this conflict between the United States and China.
And maybe eventually be punished. You know, having two boyfriends never ends well.
Well, I'll leave it to you to talk about that.
Not that I do. I'm just saying it just doesn't end well. Dr. Gerald Horne, as always, thank you so much for joining this morning and sharing your brain with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's much needed. Of course, Tavis Smiley's up next. He's got a full lineup for you on this wonderful Wednesday. If you missed the show, they're all available for free wherever you get your podcasts. You could get them on the KBLA app. And, of course, you can tap in on YouTube and see them live there as well. Not live. Live and streamed, yes. Okay, I got to go. I'm going to leave you with a quote from the first president, democratically elected president of Ghana, one Kwame Nkrumah. It's the opposite of Make America Great Again. The quote says, "Forward ever, backward never." I'm Dominique DiPrima. History is now, and we are making it together. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thanks for sharing a part of your Wednesday with us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to approve a $17 billion investment deal with Disney World. The New York Sun says the deal will be announced today that could include new additions to the theme park, as well as commitments from Disney to help develop housing for its employees, with Florida promising to maintain the necessary infrastructure for the park. We're now learning that Sean Diddy Combs is selling his stake in his media company, Revolt. Facing multiple lawsuits accusing the African-American rapper of sexual assault, Sean Combs agreed to separate from the company he founded. Revolt began Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
As humans, we like having options. One option you might like is speaking with a real person when you call about your credit card. We're 24/7 live U.S.-based